Hi, first graders. It's Mr. Dossig here. And do you remember in our last lesson when I told you that I was reading Henry and Mudge in the Tall Treehouse by Cynthia Rowland? So, this book is my mentor text. A mentor text is a text that you use while you're writing your own story, and you learn about some of the great things your mentor text author is doing, so you could try that stuff out in your own story. Okay? Remember, you can't become a good realistic fiction writer unless you read lots of realistic fiction. So, I was reading Henry and Mudge in the Tall Treehouse again, and I noticed something really great that Cynthia Rylant does in her book. And I think I want to try it out in my own book. And I'm hoping that you, after this video is over, you'll try it out in your own book too. Okay? All right, let me show you what she does. Guys, see that? Turn and tell someone at home what this is. If you said it's a table of contents, you were right. So Cynthia Rylant breaks up her book into chapters. Okay? That way, her readers know where the beginning of the story is, the middle of the story is, and the end of the story is. And you can break up your own story into chapters also. Okay? That way, when your readers are reading your story, they can find the beginning, middle, and end no problem. Okay? So, Cynthia Rylant divides her book into chapters. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to show you how I do it, and I'm hoping that you will do the same thing in your writing today. Okay? Take a look. So here's my story. Gary has to stay in the country now. Okay? Now, after my cover page, which is this, I'm going to have my table of contents page where I'm going to list my chapters. Okay? Remember, your first chapter should be all about the beginning of the story. Your second chapter is all about what happens in the middle of the story, and your third chapter is the end. You're probably thinking, Mr. Dossig, can I have more than 3 chapters? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Use as many chapters as you feel you need to. But for now, keep it simple. 3 chapters, beginning, middle, end. Okay? Don't make things harder than they need to be. All right. So, now that I have this, okay, I can take my story and I can start dividing it into chapters. I have to reread my story first, everything I have, and think, what's the beginning all about? What's the middle all about? What's the end all about? I haven't really written the end yet, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's get started. Gary had just moved to the country. Maybe it'd be better if you saw it. Gary had just moved to the country. One day he was in the forest by his new house. I wish I could have a tree fort, Gary thought. Sometimes Gary was lonely. He wanted a place to play. He looked around the woods. He wondered, what could I build a fort with? He only lived in his new house for 3 days. He only knew Mom, Dad, and his cat. Mom and Dad were very busy working from home. His cat napped a lot. None of them would help him build a fort. Gary walked outside into his yard. He started to pick up sticks for his fort. He heard a noise from over the fence. It was a girl. She was wearing, wait, it was a girl with long black hair. She was wearing a blue sweater. Okay? So far, friends, what I just read to you, was the beginning of my story. Okay? So thinking about what the beginning of my story was all about, I can come up with a title for the chapter. Okay? And usually the chapters, they should be short. Okay? Let me show you again. Do you see how short and simple Cynthia Rylant makes her chapters? I'm going to do the same thing. Wait and see. Okay. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Lonely in the new house. Do you have to make them short? No. But this part of my story is mostly about Gary being lonely in his new house. So I'm going to call chapter 1 Lonely in the New House. Okay? So my table of contents page, I'll write that there too. Chapter 1, Lonely in the New House. Okay? Let's go to the middle of the story. She was also picking up sticks. Gary looked up at her. "Hi, are you picking up sticks too?" he said. "Yes, I am," the girl said. "My name..." Oh, "Yes, I am," the girl said. "My name is Gary. I am new here," said Gary. The girl smiled. "Nice to meet you, and my name is Julie," said the girl. Julie was a lot taller than Gary, almost 1 head taller, and strong too. She could pick up 3 sticks for every 1 stick Gary could pick up. Gary thought that she would be a great person to build a fort with. The 2 new friends worked all afternoon under the bright, hot sun. Soon their pile of sticks began to look like a fort. At last, the fort was done. Gary and Julie were so proud of their work. They high-fived and danced to celebrate. Then all of a sudden, the sky went black, and there was thunder. Then came the lightning and rain. It was loud and scary. It rained hard, and they were starting to get really wet. Good thing the fort was done. Okay, so that's part of the middle of my story. So now I take it, and I think about, what was this mostly about? Okay, now I come up with a name for this chapter. So thinking about what this story was mostly about, a good name for this chapter could be A New Friend. Okay? That's mostly what this chapter is about. So, chapter 1 in the beginning, he's lonely in the new house. Chapter 2, he makes a new friend. Oh, even better, a new friend and a fort. That's even better, because in the middle, he makes a new friend and he builds a fort. So why can't we call it A New Friend and a Fort? Perfect. That's chapter 2. Okay? Now I add that to my contents pages. my content page. All right, so chapter 1, lonely in the new house. Chapter 2, a new friend in a fort. Now, let me show you chapter 3 for the first time ever. Only trouble was they could not go inside the fort. There was no door. Gary and Julie were stuck in the rain. They were now wet and angry. Nice going! We can't get in the fort because there is no door, screamed Julie. That's not my fault. You kept piling on sticks, Gary screamed back. It's your fault, you little creep, yelled Julie. I don't want you in my fort anyway, you giant meanie, cried Gary. Ooh, it's getting bad, huh? Fine, I'm leaving, cried Julie. Good, get out of here, yelled Gary. Julie stomped hard on the big puddles as she walked home. Gary was left standing in the rain alone. It's her fault, he thought, that big mean girl. Who did she think she was? Gary was glad she was leaving. He didn't want to share the fort. The only problem was he could not get in. Okay. So this chapter is not the end of my story yet. Okay? It's not. So thinking back to this, what do you think we could call this chapter in my story? I got it. I got something. Where's Mr. Dossick's pen? Ah, there we go. I'm going to call this chapter The Big Wet Fight. Why not? It's raining really hard. Gary and Julie are stuck outside in the rain, and now they're having a huge fight because they can't get in the fort because the fort has no door. What a huge problem that is, right? So, friends, my story is not finished yet, but so far, I've got 3 chapters. Chapter 1, Lonely in the New House. It's all about the beginning. Chapter 2, A New Friend in a Fort. Chapter 3, The Big Wet Fight. Okay? If you're using 3 chapters, chapter 1 is mostly what's happening in the beginning, chapter 2 in the middle, and chapter 3 in the end. But if you need more than 1 chapter for the middle, use it. My book is probably going to have 4 chapters because now I have to work on my ending, and I will share that ending with you next time. Okay? So before you write today, don't forget, good realistic fiction writers divide their stories into chapters. One way to do it is by breaking the story into 3 parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. I hope today you will make some chapters for your story. Okay? Try to write 20 minutes today and add on. Okay? So I will see you next time. Bye.